Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some moderate turbulence.
Please remain seated and enjoy the show. Hello.
And welcome to
Moderate Turbulence.
I'm Jeremie.
I'm Adele.
Hello, Adele.
Hi, Jeremie.
It's been a while. How are you?
Good. How are you?
You know me. I'm always good. How's flying? As good as it can be right now, I guess, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of not issues, just like things happening and causing delays and really long days.
Yeah.
I've just had a lot of those lately.
Excellent. Well, we're going to do more updates in our next episode. This episode, we actually want to focus on, because I finally read it after Adele hounded me to do it for so long, we're going to be reviewing the novel Drowning, written by T.J. Newman. Now, this is sort of the follow-up book to her first novel, which was called Falling, which we both loved.
Yeah.
Right? And we reviewed that one in a previous episode. And now, T.J. Newman, just a quick little recap. She is a retired flight attendant. She worked for 2 different airlines for a number of years. And now she has gone on to become an author. I think she's a best-selling author, at least she should be, by all of our accounts, because we really enjoyed her 2 books.
Yeah. And both of her novels are being created into movies.
Oh, I didn't know this one was as well, is it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I don't know when they're going to be in production or like released or anything like that, but they're both the rights to the movies have been bought, and people have been, there's talk of who's going to direct the movies and stuff. So it's like it's big. It's a big deal, and it's going to be probably really, really great movies.
Yeah, and
because the books are so cool.
Absolutely. We're very proud of a fellow flight attendant who has now pursuing this career as an author. And we both loved her first book. The first book, which was basically pilots flying from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then is given an ultimatum by someone who has his family captured, saying, whether have to sacrifice your family or you have to crash the plane. And he said, I'm not going to do either of those. And then we see how the story unfolds. This one is another thriller, I would guess we could categorize it as.
Definitely.
It's not following any of the same characters from the first book. But just a quick little PSA here. We will be giving some spoilers here. So if you have not read Drowning, pause the podcast, go to your local bookstore, buy the book. That way you're also supporting TJ Newman. Read the book. It's a pretty quick read, actually. And then
it's so good.
Yeah, because it's hard to put down. Then come back and listen to the rest of the podcast. So there's your PSA, spoiler alert. We will be talking about a couple details in the book. So we don't want to spoil that for you. Go listen to it. Read it. Whatever.
You can probably listen to it on audio at this point. I'm sure there's an audio version out there. But yeah, it's definitely a second novel, second hit, still as a completely different story, still aviation related, but
and still some aviation characters in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into the book. I mean, we say review, but we're just going to be talking about it in an aviation standpoint as well. And just sharing our thoughts. It's not a book review channel, and we're not going to criticize the literary quality of the book, but just the story and what's related to aviation. And
yeah. So first of all, a personal note, I really enjoyed the first book. I liked this one even more. I found it harder to put down because I really wanted to find out what was happening next. How about you?
Yeah, maybe this one was a little bit more gripping. I definitely did not dislike either of the books. I feel like they're pretty equally ranked in my mind. Yeah, it depends. Are you more into a hijacking storyline or a
Well, this one is more
water evacuation
aircraft
situation.
Yeah, I was going to say an incident on water that unfolds in an unusual way. Is that fair to say? Well, you know what? Let's just give you a quick little summary. So basically, shortly after takeoff, there's an aircraft incident. The aircraft needs to ditch in the water. Now, while ditching, one of the passengers noticed that a lot of fuel leaked out of the wings. And so by looking outside as people were evacuating, he sort of made a second guess saying, I don't think we should be going out there because once all that fuel ignites, there's no chance of surviving that because the fuel will be on top of the water and there's no way to escape it. And so as he's sort of contemplating this, and this is with mere seconds to live, basically, a decision is made with a number of passengers on board to close the aircraft doors and stay inside. Now, some of the passengers were like, no, we have to get out there. There's no way we can survive inside. Some people were like, no, like he knows what he's talking about. He seems to have a good grasp on things. And one of the pilots, who was a survivor as well, agreed with him at one point. And so they closed the door. So now they've ditched the aircraft, they've closed the door, and then they start to sink.
And to be noted, that passenger, that person, was not part of the crew.
No.
So he just had knowledge. I forget what his occupation is.
He's like an engineer.
Yeah. So he's very well versed in what could happen with all that fuel and such, but he wasn't part of the crew. So it's like you're reading this and you're like, oh, as a passenger, are you trusting the crew? Are you trusting this random person who's claiming he knows all this information? And it's so counterintuitive to not leave the aircraft after an emergency landing. Like we are trained to get passengers off of the aircraft in a certain amount of time.
Yep.
The doors, the exits, the rafts, the survival kits, all that stuff. Let's get out. Let's start surviving. But you don't stay on the aircraft.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, these people stay on the aircraft. And there's regular passengers, there's a pilot, and there's cabin crew members that are still there. So you have a whole bunch of different types of characters that are still there, and they have to then figure out how to survive a sinking aircraft into the ocean.
Yeah.
And the story is also taking place off the coast of Hawaii.
Hawaii, yeah.
So the aircraft left Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it left Hawaii. So it's, the Pacific Ocean, pretty treacherous waters. So we're in it. And this is like right off the bat. This is probably like the first 2-3 chapters. This is happening. The first line is there's something wrong with the aircraft. So it starts out with a bang. You get hooked right away. And then you get like also right off the bat, like the first chapter, the second chapter, you get,
It
passengers realizing that there's something wrong with the aircraft. And then they're starting to say goodbye. They're starting to say, okay, this is my last moments.
Yeah.
I'm going to never see my kids again. I'm not seeing my loved ones again. Or like the person sitting next to me, this is the last time I get to kiss them or hug them. So it's super emotional because this is our lives. Like if this were to happen, this is kind of what we would be thinking maybe.
Yeah.
We're always on airplanes. So it's just like that, like right away also just like triggered tears and like emotions. So you're in it right away.
And I'll be a little honest. When I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, this is really far-fetched. I don't know if I'm really going to like this one. And that's why I kind of put it off for a little bit. But then when I started reading, and like, I think Adele was watching me as I've read like the first few paragraphs, and I was like, oh, I'm in already. And it was really, really hard to put down for the next little bit. So basically, as the story starts to unfold, the aircraft does have like air pockets in it, but the fuselage of the aircraft starts sinking down. And then they come to a stop. And so they're like, okay, we have this small pocket of air, and then there's different things sort of unfolding. And how do you communicate with the ground up top? And basically, how do we put a rescue plan in motion? Is it going to work? So there's so many like variables and so many different things that can happen. And watching them sort of try to solve the problems is pretty outrageous. And part of it is pretty realistic, how you would have like a team put in place right away who's starting the process of how are we going to save these passengers and crew members. There would definitely be like a team in place like that. And when you're dealing with an aircraft underwater, it's not going to hold the water out forever. Aircraft are, definitely designed so that they have pressurization when you're up in the air, but being underwater when the pressure is going the opposite way, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, so you have all these elements, and then you have the rescue teams on land that are trying to figure out what's the best course, because the aircraft doesn't land at the bottom of the ocean. It's like on a giant rock formation that's I don't remember exactly the distance.
It's like a ridge, so almost like not like a sandbar, but something so that it's propped up, but it's teetering on the edge of actually going down like a major crevice and then being like thousands of feet underwater where there would be no rescue opportunity. But they're just like, I think less than 200 feet underwater. And so the rescue is possible, but not easy.
Yeah, so there's all these different kinds of elements, because it's not just, okay, we're going to take a giant machine and take this aircraft out of the water and bing, bang, boom, everyone's saved.
Yeah.
That's obviously not how it would go. And the book is very well researched to the point of like, could this happen? I don't know. But like, TJ Newman obviously has her background with aviation, but then she spoke to a lot of different professionals, like submarine experts and aviation rescue teams, firefighters, all of these different types of people, so that she can have as much of an accurate portrayal of this far-fetched situation, but as, you know, realistic.
She made it as realistic as possible. Yeah.
And also with like the technical elements of each person's, you know, expertise in the book wasn't like just glazed over or not really fully talked about.
Yeah.
Every person, like the chief rescue Coast Guard person, then the engineer who's working with it, the cabin crew and the pilots on board, like all these different people, like they bring in their certain expertise, and TJ Newman presented it very well in the book.
Absolutely. And again, there's also like the love story reconnection between the passenger who's on the aircraft with the daughter, and then the ex-wife is part of the team that's trying to rescue them, because she heads up a team of underwater divers who do, underwater welders who go to certain depths to do some it's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. And so, of course, that's his ex-wife, mother of the child that's on the plane. So she has a vested interest to help with this operation as well, to save them all. And seeing how that whole sort of love story unfolds as well was actually, I thought at first that part was going to be really corny, but it was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed that part as well.
Yeah. And then it's like different personalities on board, different ages. So who's going to be the cocky passenger who thinks they can figure it out and then possibly get hurt? Who's the person who's going to sacrifice themselves for others?
Yep.
So you have all these elements, and it was just so well done. And most of the book is in this aircraft underwater.
Yeah.
And then I'd say 90% of the book is the situation underwater. So like you're in it the whole book. There's no like fluff before or fluff after. There's just like the meat is the whole book.
Yeah.
It's all of it. There's a little bit of after, like an epilogue.
Yeah.
But it's like a quick chapter to get like what's happening after. Other than that, the book is the book, and then you get the story.
Yeah, it's really great. And the different characters that they introduce, of course, you have an unaccompanied minor. Then you have the father and daughter, who are kind of like the main characters. You have the first officer, because unfortunately the captain didn't make it. You have some of the cabin crew members, not all of them, because on this aircraft, I guess some of them had escaped beforehand, and then some of them had stayed on. And then, of course, you have a few of the other passengers, the elderly couple, and then you have the jerk, the person who what anybody says is wrong, and they want to take control, but they know nothing. They're just that pompous kind of jerk, right? And yeah, seeing how all of the characters interact, like it was. I really enjoyed it. And I mean, it's pretty predictable how it's all going to end, but it's...
Well, I mean, the ending, is it a good ending? Yes.
It's a Hollywood ending, yeah.
But are there a lot of misfortunes along the way? Yes. Mm-hmm. And you definitely don't know. And at the end also, like, you don't know if a certain person actually made it until the epilogue.
Yeah.
Like you're not sure. You seem like most people made it, or like most people are happy, but like there's still that sadness because this one person isn't there or whatever. But then it's like, no, actually it's not true.
Yeah.
So it was just very well presented, and it's just chef's kiss. I really want her to keep writing 20,000 more books, because I will read
aviation related, because we'll be there. We'll buy the hardcovers of all of them. Don't you worry.
Or even just anything. I feel like she just has a handle of storytelling at this point that she could just probably write about anything.
Yeah.
Thrillers definitely seems to be her forte at this point, but who knows? TJ Newman definitely has a career as an author.
Yep. Yep.
And I had a quick DM with her like way back when. So I feel like maybe she's too famous now, but I would definitely still be interested to have an interview with her, have a chat with her, just because it's so interesting to go from what we do to something different. And it's I love books. I've definitely thought about writing a book. So it's very inspiring as well to be this. What, Roxy, where are you going? Roxy's also very excited about it. To go from being a flight attendant to being a very successful author and having your books created into movies, it's just pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Something to be proud of.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, we can't wait for the next one. I mean, so far we've had the hijacking one, now this one with the ditching. What do you think is going to be next?
What other situation? Roxy, where are you going?
Well, one thing that we, sorry, we're just going to get Roxy up there for a second. So one thing that we're going to be reviewing in sometime in the next few episodes is there's a Netflix documentary, and it's basically the story from the movie Alive, but it's just a new take and a more of a documentary version of it. And that's where they had the aircraft that crashed in the Andes, and then that story unfolds. So we're going to watch that Netflix documentary and then do sort of a review on that. But something like that, stranded when nobody knows exactly where you are, that could happen. Or, I mean, there's still a lot of talk about MH370. So if you had sort of a fictional sort of take on that, and I'm not talking about like Manifest, which was a great show, but like, something more along those lines.
I just thought about an idea for her next novel. I'm just thinking of different aviation situations. I'm thinking you're in flight and you have to deal with a medical situation, like a very dramatic, serious medical situation. And then you have to figure out, are we landing the plane? Are we dealing with a situation? But then
you could be over the Pacific or whatever.
Yeah. And then when there's any kind of situation on board, passengers get involved, they have opinions, or they're really upset about, oh, well, now I don't get service. Like I don't get my drink or I don't get my meal because you're dealing with a medical situation. So that would be a very interesting story. And let's say there's like severe weather as they're going and like
turbulence. And,
I feel like that could be a really interesting story.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see what TJ Newman comes up with next. But whatever it is, we will be reading it and we will 100% be reviewing it on here as well. So TJ Newman, if you're listening, please continue writing. We can't wait. And for everybody else out there, if you are flying,
be nice to your flight attendants.
Because they might have to save your butt one day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, Roxy. Roxy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Moderate Turbulence on Instagram, at Mod Turbulence on Twitter, and follow us individually on Instagram at HuffyJ and at La Delvie. Thank you.